Every railroad had its traditions, and the Southern Railway was no exception. The look of its locomotives and how it ran them really stood out, so today, let's discuss two slightly unusual traditions on the Southern. I'm talking about running Longhood Forward and its distinctive high hoods. It's something you can still see from time to time in the 21st century. But why exactly did the Southern Railway, one of Norfolk Southern's predecessors, opt for a Longhood Forward operation? A Trains magazine article by Ron Flannery explains it pretty well. The Southern wanted its locomotives to be set up for bidirectional operation. According to the article, most landside signals are on the right, so having the engineer on the right side of the cab made sense. If the unit was running Longhood Forward, he'd be on the right-hand side and would be able to clearly make out the signal. If the locomotive changed directions, he'd be on the left side, but the short hood wouldn't obstruct his vision. This meant the unit didn't need to be turned at the end of its run. Of course, running Longhood Forward also provided extra protection for the crew in the event of an accident. By the way, that little F indicates the forward end of the engine, and these GEs were some of the last locomotives to be set up like this. Norfolk and Western also had many of its diesels set up for Longhood Forward operation. Quite a few of those had control stands on both sides of the cab. And, like the Southern, Norfolk and Western was also a proponent of another very distinctive locomotive feature. The high short hood was standard on the GP7, the first in EMD's line of general-purpose road switchers. Some railroads would put extra equipment, like steam generators, to heat older passenger cars inside. But even after the high short hood became optional and other railroads moved away from the design, the Southern Railway continued to order it. But why? Well, there are a lot of different answers to this question, and frankly, I'm not 100% sure which is right, but here's what I've read. There was a labor agreement in place that made railroads turn the locomotive so it was facing forward before each run. The Southern would have hoods on both ends, so each side could be considered the front. Remember, Southern Railway locomotives were set up for Longhood Forward operation. Not having to turn a locomotive around would save time. Of course, if the locomotive was running short hood forward, there would be some added safety if there was a collision, but it's unclear if that factored into the railroad's purchasing decisions. So, what's inside this engine's high hood? Well, like many locomotives, the nose houses a toilet. And the one advantage here, you can actually stand up. Many old Southern locomotives eventually had their high hoods, for lack of a better term, chopped down, making them look more conventional. But Norfolk Southern still has a few in service. You can find some of them, along with other pieces of unusual equipment, in a town just south of Atlanta. There are a few oddities here at Norfolk Southern's training center in McDonough, Georgia. This is what happens when you combine the back end of an EMD with the rear of a GE. Pretty bizarre, but it has a purpose. Now, I'm a rail fan and not a railroader, but when I posted this picture, a viewer who said he went through training at this facility said it's used to teach mechanical trainees how to perform different tasks. I wish I could have gotten a better look, but this is as close as I could get without trespassing. There are plenty of other unusual things here at the training center. How about these ex-Southern Railway high hoods? There's also an old Norfolk and Western caboose behind them. And what's up with this stack of crossing lights? This is definitely an interesting place. Countless conductors, engineers, signal workers, and track workers have passed through here. It opened in 1974 and has been dubbed the Railroad University. Before we wrap up this video, I wanted to go over a few of the other unique features found on the old Southern Railway high hoods, specifically the SD40-2, which I just happen to have a model of here. Now this model is HO scale and it was made by Broadway Limited. Let's start off with the horns. There's actually two of them. There's one here on the long hood and another one back here on the short hood. And take a look at the bell. The Southern Railway actually mounted the bell on the front of its locomotives. And of course, here's the famous SD40-2 back porch, or in this case, the front porch. And that's here because EMD incorporated longer trucks into the SD40-2. We're looking at the famous high short hood now, and you can see that other horn I was talking about, in addition to two firecracker radio antennas. And take a look below the Norfolk Southern road number. You can see the letters SOU, which means this was an old Southern Railway unit. To me, small details like these make the practices of running Longhood Forward and buying high hoods that much more interesting. Well, those are just two slightly unusual traditions from railroad history, but if you know about more, tell me about them in the comments below, and I'll see you next time.